How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Infinite Sports. I'm your host, Kenneth Gruenfelder. To recap Super Wild Card Weekend, I will not be doing it alone today. I brought a very special guest. We brought our friend Dommy here over from Sloppy Saturdays, so we've had him on quite a few times to recap these games and also to give a post-mortem because it was kind of a rough weekend from a fan's perspective for both of us. So first of all, Dami, how are you today on this Tuesday?
I'm doing pretty good. I enjoyed watching all the games with you because we pretty much watched all of them together besides the first game and the last game. So that was definitely fun. Like you said, it went as bad as it could possibly go fan wise for the both of us, which isn't a shocker. I wore both my players' jerseys. I jinxed them both. Another shocker. I've been ducking people too to not talk about what really went on, but course, Ken had me come on, so the ducking is no longer there. I'm sure some people will be tuning into this. Not that excited from that standpoint, but I'm always excited to talk to you and recap.
Yeah, no, it was not a pretty weekend, but I will say though, from an objective standpoint, pretty much all of the games outside of last night. I mean, for three quarters the game was competitive, and we kept saying, especially on Sunday, hey, it's still anybody's game. It was still anybody's game until the fourth quarter, but we saw some really good games over the weekend. We saw some really good performances from especially the quarterbacks, especially the top quarterbacks in the league and up and coming quarterbacks and some of the guys that have been there already. And it really is setting up for a very exciting divisional weekend, which is usually one of the best weekends in football. So we'll see what this upcoming weekend has in store. But to kind of look at these games in totality, um, you know, before the year started, I I had the Rams winning the whole thing, and I still have that. But with this first game, I am really not confident coming out of it based off of how the game unfolded, the way the game looked. I mean, I thought the Rams were going to run away with this thing, and especially when the Panthers fumbled on, I think it was the punt or kickoff, but they lost the ball. I thought the Rams were going to turn that into points, and I thought that was basically going to be it, but that wasn't the case. I mean, the Panthers, they played a really good game. I thought that was probably Bryce Young's best game, honestly, or one of his best games as a pro. I thought he played really well. The Panthers, they gave it all. Their all. It just they came up a little bit short. I thought the Rams' defense was shaky. I mean, Stafford turned the ball over, threw that interception to Mike Jackson. I thought the Panthers had him, but then the Rams' offense locked in, and Stafford, put the ball where it needed to be. Parkinson made a nice catch, and the Panthers just ran out of time, honestly. And Jimmy Horn had that drop. Jimmy Horn Jr. had that tough drop at the end of the game. And the Panthers lose a close one. I mean, they almost knocked off the Rams twice this year. I thought, you know, the Rams were at a much better advantage this time around because I thought they wouldn't let that happen again, and it literally almost happened again. So I'm like still not confident in the Rams going into this weekend, but that was a great way to start it off. And then, um, one thing I do want to bring up though is uh, to you, like, who do you think was probably the most disappointing team this weekend? Because I think for me, and we talked about, well, I know where you're probably leaning, but I might not. I don't think I'm going to say that. I think for me, the most disappointing team this weekend for me was the Philadelphia Eagles. I thought, and I think going into that game, I mean, I was saying it when we were watching the games. We were together on Sunday to watch the games. I thought the Eagles were going to dominate the 49ers, especially how the 49ers looked against Seattle the week before. And, the defense with all the injuries and, you had Kittle go out early, and that was unfortunate because, love watching Kittle play. I just thought, the Eagles defense was going to get after Purdy, and Purdy did turn the ball over. But he rebounded and he still stepped up, had a great final drive at the end there. And obviously Christian McCaffrey put his stamp on the game. He continues to be amazing, especially when he's healthy. I mean, and I know the Eagles' offense was up and down all year, but I thought the Eagles, with being at home, that defense, and it being in the playoffs, I thought the Eagles were going to run away with that game, and that just didn't happen. That game was close from start to finish, and the Niners, knocked them off, the defending champs. To me, that they were the most disappointing team of the weekend. I don't know if you agree with that. Who do you think was the most disappointing team this past weekend?
Yeah, I think the Eagles definitely have a case. They definitely were up there. I think me and you had a pretty similar opinion on the Eagles. We thought that again, the Eagles kind of cruised through the season a little bit, 11-6. Again, a bad season for them coming off a Super Bowl, but a great season for many other fan bases. And we all had this opinion like the Eagles lay over the Niners on paper. Their defense lays over the Niners defense. They have these weapons on the outside that the Niners don't necessarily have. They're the better team, and we all thought there was going to be a point in the season, whether it was going to be late in the season or this playoff game, what we were expecting to going into it, that the Eagles were going to wake up. But in reality, all we saw from the Eagles is what we've been seeing all season. A team that doesn't look that impressive compared to what they have on offense, on defense. I mean, when you look at this team on paper, they lay over probably pretty much every other team besides the Rams. But it has been documented that this team really internally something's a little off. We all know the Hurts Sirianni beef over the years. Obviously, from this game, you saw A.J. Brown complaining multiple times. Then the thing I hate about A.J. Brown, he complains about the ball. And in that last drive, he has a monumental drop on Jalen Hurts. You can't have it both ways. You can't be out there complaining and then at the same time drop a meaningful ball in that game. But again, this 49ers team and with Kyle Shanahan, again, in my opinion, right now, even though he may not have the resume, he may not have the Super Bowls, I think he is by far the most impressive coach in the league. Obviously, everybody wants to talk about first-year coach Ben Johnson, and there's a ton of other guys, Sean McVay, a ton of great coaches. But what Shanahan is able to do with the receivers that he has, I mean, when we see a guy like DeMarcus Robinson have 111 yards in a game, it really doesn't matter to them what receivers they have because they are able, with the movement Shanahan gives, to give mismatches, to have a receiver on a linebacker. So with that, they don't necessarily need the weapons outside. And then obviously Christian McCaffrey has a case for the best player in the NFL. And then Brock Purdy, again, a guy that never hurt you. He's a pretty good quarterback. He made 2 monumental mistakes in this game. But again, Eagles got to go one of the most disappointing teams this weekend, let alone the season. I don't think we were expecting the Eagles to be 11-6. I don't think we were expecting the Eagles to be a first run out. And Kyle Shanahan continues to impress again with everything that he has lost throughout the season. He still finds ways to win. The only reason I wouldn't go Eagles is because, again, for me with the Eagles, not only do I think the 49ers are a really good team, I also think, again, we just thought that the Eagles were going to wake up, and they didn't. They kind of showed us what they did the whole entire season. Again, I don't even really want to get into it, but I think the Chargers were by far the most disappointing team. Again, based on expectations and what actually happened, I thought the Chargers-Patriots game was going to be a lot closer than it was. I thought the Chargers had a chance to win this game. Again, a lot of people wanted to go off Patriots, not really playing anybody. Again, didn't really play any teams over 500 throughout the year. There's only, again, less than a handful of teams they played that were over 500. I thought the Chargers had a really good chance again. Obviously, the Chargers, it wasn't, again, a team that I was going to pick as much as, again, I'm a fan of this team. My favorite players on this team. Not a team that I was going to pick to go to the Super Bowl or win the Super Bowl. Because, again, we get it. Everybody's hurt. We just talked about the 49ers being one of the most hurt teams. Chargers are probably at the top of the list of how hurt they are. They arrested Herbert the week before. Obviously, he's been playing with a broken hand for 4 weeks. You also look at the offensive line. They got 2 all-pro caliber offensive line guys. They are out. You look at the run game. The running game is absolutely horrible. You had a guy in Lamar in Hampton that was projected to play, barely played in this game. You're using Kamani Vidal. That was really never in your plan throughout the year. But again, when you look at this game, when you look at the play calling from Greg Roman, and again, as much as I am probably the biggest Justin Herbert fan on this entire earth, I do not think Justin Herbert played a game that he would play in the regular season. I think Justin Herbert really just has to get over this mental hump. I'm not saying the Chargers were going to win this game, because I do think the Patriots were playing out of their mind. I saw something that he was getting pressured 30 out of 31 times. Again, he has a broken hand. He has arguably the worst offensive line in the league. Again, everything is not great for him right now by any means. But at the same time, if you look at the tape, he missed a lot of throws that he would normally make. He didn't look like himself. And again, I do think it's just something of getting over this initial hump, getting over this first playoff win, and then eventually he'll be able to make a run. But again, scoring 3 points for the Chargers with this quarterback, I think they're the most disappointing team of the weekend. But again, you could go Eagles and you also could go Steelers
Yeah.
as well.
I mean, I also think because like for the Eagles, like to me, I thought the Steelers' ceiling was they make the playoffs and maybe you win a playoff game and that's it. I didn't think the Steelers were gonna. I mean, I think if Rodgers continued to play how he played last week, which did not do that last night, I think maybe you always you got a chance. But even then, like there's so many other teams that I look at and I'm like these teams can make a run, not really the Steelers, but for me the Eagles, like how their roster is constructed, the players that they got on the perimeter, and I know Saquon didn't have his best season, but he had a couple of big runs early on in the game against the 49ers where I thought, all right, here we go. Saquon's going to take over the game again, and it never really materialized. I just thought the Eagles, to me, and especially the opposition they were going up against, and a team that's just ravaged by injuries, and again, you lose your all-pro tight end. I just thought that, and odds are you probably would have been hosting a playoff game. Actually, no, you wouldn't have. You'd be playing the Bears had the Eagles have won, which would have been interesting. But to me, the Eagles were the disappointment. The Chargers definitely were disappointing. They kind of been in the same spot. Harbaugh comes in. They made the playoffs last year, one and done, and they're one and done this year. And yeah, like you said, it's when is Justin Herbert going to get over that hump? Because I think vast majority of people look at him as a good quarterback, but he hasn't really lived up. I mean, to the billing. I mean, should have a playoff win under his belt had they not had that epic collapse against the Jaguars, which we were also together for that game, that lovely game that it was. Although there was a silver lining because it was Trevor Lawrence's first playoff win, so at least you had that. But yeah, it's just when is Justin Herbert going to get over that hump? And you look at the bigger picture. The Broncos aren't going to go away. I still have faith that the Chiefs will bounce back next year, although that's ways away. So the Raiders, that's the only team that you just completely discount. We talked about that in the episode that I guest starred on. You could check that out whenever that's up. It's teams are not going to be going away. And there's going to be new teams that you don't even expect that come out of nowhere. And then all of a sudden it's like another year gone by. So definitely a disappointing end. You could point to different things as to why that game unfolded the way it did. I mean, the Chargers defense did everything it could to keep them in the game. When they had that early turnover and they're inside the 20, I thought they were going to put up 7. And it just didn't happen. It just did not happen.
I mean, you had three runs by Herbert.
Yeah.
Again, I don't like the play calling by Greg Roman, but again, I can't deny whether it's the offensive line being horrible, whether it's his broken hand, whether it's them not having a run game. I can't deny from again the last 4 or 5 weeks with all of this as well. He just doesn't look like himself completely in these
No,
games.
and also, I mean, his receivers didn't do him any help too. I mean, Keenan Allen had a couple of drops in this game that were costly. So and at the same time, I don't want to make any make excuses, but I mean, there are factors, because if Chargers have a healthy offensive line and Herbert's not so banged up, have a running game to balance out the passing attack. I mean, yeah, the game does go different. Did the Patriots still win? Probably. But Drake May didn't have his best playoff debut. Just got his feet wet. So, and he's only going to go up against an even better defense in the Houston Texans next week. So, it's just another tough year for the Chargers. And how the season started out, the comeback victories. I mean, they beat the Chiefs to start the year. It looked like everything was starting to come together for the Chargers, and it didn't happen. So, we'll see what happens next year. I mean, I still got faith in Harbaugh. I still got faith in this team that they could turn it around. And at some point, Herbert's going to make a run. But for the moment, you kind of just got to, you know, walk away from it and just say, hey, it is what it is. He's 0-3 in the playoffs. He's got to, he's got to have his moment. He's had his moments in the regular season, but the postseason moment's got to happen. Otherwise, he's just going to be discounted when you're looking at the top quarterbacks in the league because he does have that potential. I mean, that's what we've been talking about, but he just has not been able to get over that hump. So that was probably, the worst game before Monday's game because Monday's game last night. Speaking of the Texans defense, I mean that was a train wreck. The fan in me that grew up watching Aaron Rodgers, that was very tough to watch last night. And at least like for you, Dommy, Justin Herbert's got next year. Based off of what happened last night, and especially with what happened today with Mike Tomlin now stepping down. We'll talk about that a little bit. I think that basically signals the end for what was a incredible career for Aaron Rodgers, an incredible 20 years. The only thing is, would have liked to have seen him win a little bit more hardware, a little bit more championship rings, but that's not the case. It's hard to win a Super Bowl. I mean, unless you're Tom Brady, obviously. But an incredible career it was. It's fortunate to at least see him get back to the playoffs because that was something, especially with how the last 2 years have gone. I didn't really know if that was going to be in the cards, but it was an up and down year for him in Pittsburgh. Did have some pretty good games, a couple games where he threw 4 touchdown passes, and the win against the Ravens, although came down to a missed kick, I thought that was the best he looked down the stretch. Some of the throws he made, to Freiermuth, and the throw to Thielen early on in the game, and obviously the touchdown pass to Calvin Austin. There were no touchdowns yesterday. Early on in this game, I thought the Steelers' offense, I was saying, hey, maybe they are going to be able to move the ball against this defense because right away Jaylen Warren picks up that first down. Rodgers hit DK Metcalf for another 20 yards. I think that might have been the second drive of the game. And I was like, okay, maybe the offensive line's going to hold up and they're going to be able to move the football a little bit. But I think really for me, the turning point of the game was that drop pass by DK Metcalf on second down in the first quarter. I think the Steelers are up 3-0 at that point. I think they at least get some points off that drive because after that drive, they just could not generate any kind of offense. Rodgers had guys in his face all day long, and it's just they could not do anything. And it's not like the Texans' offense was, really doing much. I mean, they did have some big plays. Nico Collins got hurt in this game, but Christian Kirk had a monster game. Stroud had an interception in the red zone, fumbled the ball a couple times. I don't know what was going on with the center yesterday. I mean, there were so many botched snaps, but Stroud had a couple of turnovers, and the Steelers only cashed in and scored 3 points off of them. Whereas later in the game, the Texans cashed in. They got 2 turnovers, and they turned those into 14 points. So it really just came down to what offense was going to turn the ball over and what defense was going to score off of those turnovers. And the Texans' defense is really what won the game for them. I mean, Stroud did not play a great game. Did make a couple of nice throws, but, before the 2 turnovers, the Steelers had the turnover battle 3-0, and they only could generate 3 points off of those turnovers. So it was definitely going to be a tall task. I thought with the Steelers being at home, I thought that, with the home crowd and how Rodgers has been looking recently, and DK Metcalf coming back, I thought that, maybe they'd be able to eke out a win and at least survive for another week. But the Steelers' defense was just on the field for too long. And the Texans wore them down with the running game. Woody Marks actually had his first career 100-yard game in the NFL, had a rushing touchdown. It was tough to watch. It really was. That's how it's going to end. But again, especially with Tomlin stepping down, I think that's probably going to be it. I mean, Rodgers isn't going to make a decision, I don't think, immediately. I think it's going to be a little bit before he does make it official because the season literally just ended. But I think especially with Mike Tomlin stepping down, and he even said it was either prior to signing with Pittsburgh, it was going to be either Pittsburgh or retirement. So, and he wanted to play for Mike Tomlin. So now that Mike Tomlin's out, that probably signals the end um, for Aaron Rodgers. But it's amazing Mike Tomlin stepping down. It only lasted for another week because we kept talking about it. Whoever lost the game between the Ravens and the Steelers, coach was going to end up being let go. It ended up being Harbaugh, and then the Steelers got waxed last night, and Tomlin ends up stepping down. And now it puts an interesting situation together because it's the same as Sean Payton's situation where Steelers have the rights to him still. So if a team wants Mike Tomlin, they're gonna have to trade for him. So what's gonna happen? Is he gonna go somewhere this season, next season, or is he gonna take the year off and then come back the following year? I think that's definitely a strong possibility. I think Mike Tomlin is still a very good football coach. It's just one of those things where his time was up. His time was up. The Steelers, they get to the playoffs almost every year, but they don't win a playoff game. They haven't won a playoff game since our high school days, which is amazing. It was time for a change, but he's definitely gonna get back on his feet. He's gonna find another job at some point if he wants it, and he's gonna build up a culture somewhere else. But the Steelers are a team that definitely needed change because they've just been kind of stuck in football purgatory where you know, they finish with a decent record. They don't have a high draft pick. They make it to the playoffs. They play Mahomes. They play Josh Allen. They play a very good defense last night, and they get knocked out. And that was what was going to continue happening. Had they kept Mike Tomlin, maybe Rodgers does come back. You're in the playoff hunt. Maybe you squeak in, and then you probably lose again. And then it's just the same. And then they needed to make a change. So I think Tomlin stepping down, I think was better for both sides. And then for Aaron Rodgers, like I said, just great career. It was awesome getting to watch him all these years, and it's just another domino in the golden age of quarterbacks, honestly, because we had some really good quarterbacks growing up, and there's only a couple left. I mean, I don't know what Flacco's gonna do. I mean, you still got Stafford, but that's pretty much it. And then it's just, but I think the NFL is and we both agree with this. The NFL is in very good hands with the quarterbacks that we got right now. I mean, obviously some of these guys got to win some rings, but I think we're in very good hands with the quarterbacks that we got right now because there are some really good ones right now.
No, yeah, very very interesting unfold of events. Like when you talk about Mike Tomlin, him stepping down, kind of looked at as mutual from I guess the public's eyes. But it could be anything. I mean, maybe they wanted him to go, but they want him to go the right way out of respect. I don't know what really went on internally. I disagree kind of a little bit with you and with other people. I think you're never going to find a coach better than Mike Tomlin, and I don't think that's the change the Steelers necessarily need to make. I think the change has to happen within the roster. I think when you're going into these seasons with Aaron Rodgers at the tail end of his career, with Russell Wilson at the tail end of his career, with the Kenny Pickett, with a Mason Rudolph. I think what Mike Tomlin has done over the course, again, I know he hasn't won a playoff game. The last time he won was before Mahomes was in the league. But, what he has to work around him, whether it was Ben Roethlisberger aging, the quarterbacks I've mentioned, I don't think he has necessarily had the talent to ever make a deep run or to even really win a playoff game. Again, maybe he could have won this one. I know you're going to disagree with me on this as well, but when it comes to Texans, Steelers, and I kind of felt the same way about the Panthers, about the Chargers, those four teams kind of in a group. Those teams, whoever won the Texans Steelers game, and if the Panthers or the Chargers would have won, those teams could win a game in the playoff format. But I don't really think those teams really had Super Bowl run on their outlook. Again, you would probably disagree with me on the Texans, as I know a lot of people watching will. A lot of people really believe in that Texans defense, and I do as well. I think the Texans defense has the best defense in the entire league. I don't think they have what it takes to win a Super Bowl because, again, a lot of people like to look at the Peyton Manning run with the Broncos. Again, that Broncos willing him to a Super Bowl. I think that's a very unique run. I don't think that's a type of run we see again, just because of what's in the AFC as well. We see the Texans going up against Drake May, even though Drake May didn't have his best playoff game and it wasn't that encouraging for that offense. I don't think you're holding the Texans to 6 points. I don't think you're holding the Patriots to 6 points. And then when you look at, again, the winner of the next game, whether it's Bo Nix being a better quarterback, having a defense to match up with the Texans, or if you face Josh Allen, again, I don't think those are guys you're holding to 6 points as well. And again, I think the combination of the offensive line and C.J. Stroud, I don't think that's an offense that can muster up enough points to win a Super Bowl again. You're going to have to see a massive jump from them. CJ Stroud, in my opinion, in this game, I thought he looked awful. I thought he looked really bad. He fumbled the ball 5 times. Obviously, he lost 2 fumbles. He threw an interception this game. I thought he looked really bad. Obviously, the defense was able to step up against the Steelers offense that isn't great to begin with. We know that. They aren't really a playoff offense at all, even though they were able to get in. But that AFC North was just nobody really wanted to get in, it looked like. But I don't think he could win a Super Bowl right now with a CJ Stroud and an offensive line. If I do think Bo Nix is definitely, like, I'm obviously high on Bo Nix, way higher than the public is. I think there's a clear gap between him and CJ Stroud, but also the differences with those two teams being similarly built. Denver's offensive line is great. Even though I think CJ Stroud is much worse than Bo Nix, his offensive line is also bad as well in a combination. I don't think that offense is going to be able to will that team to Super Bowl. A lot of people do, just based on how wide open it is and how talented the defense is. I personally don't see it happening. But yeah, again, like Aaron Rodgers, is he going to come back? Is he not going to come back? Again, I'm with you. I don't think he's going to come back, but you never know with this guy as well. Maybe possibly if they get a really good coach and hire, one of the best candidates, a stable candidate very quickly. Maybe he has a change of thought or whatever, or maybe he decides I want to come back for one more year. I don't necessarily know. I do think Tomlin, again, leaving does decrease the odds of that. Also, at the same time, with Tomlin, I don't expect Tomlin to take another job this year, even though, again, on the outlook, it may possibly be foolish because the amount of good jobs that are out there. But at the same time, I do really think Tomlin is going to spend a year in media and then look at everything else as well. Obviously, like you said, the Steelers retain his rights, so they will be able to get probably something decent in return for him. But again, this Texans Steelers game to me,
there needed to be a blowout.
It was a pretty bad game for me because, again, like I said, in my personal opinion, not only do I not really like or a fan of anybody on the field, at the same time, I don't really think this matchup is going to result in any team going on a big run, no matter who came out of it. Obviously, your thoughts are different with the Texans, but
yeah, I mean, I think, like, for me, it's, again, I think because the Texans have an elite unit on their team, and that's their defense. And I think their ability to get after the quarterback, to force turnovers, which they did they forced a couple late in the game. I mean, one of them, like Rodgers is trying to get something going on fourth down late, and that unfortunately resulted in a pick six. But, with how the Chargers defense looked against Drake May early and getting him to force turnover and forcing turnovers off of him, I mean, that Texans defense could do the same thing. The only thing is, Drake May is not going to be a sitting duck. Drake May is going to be able to get out of the pocket like he did, against the Chargers, and he's going to take off with it if he has to. So that's a different element that the Texans are going to have to deal with. And, I think there's, a bigger jump when it comes to the pass catchers because, the Steelers had, MVS and Thielen they had to bring in late because the young guys weren't, producing like they hoped for. And DK Metcalf just came back from suspension. So, yeah, the Steelers' offense was not great. Not the best supporting cast. In the offseason, the Patriots are going to have to improve their supporting cast. There's still stuff we got to figure out with Stephon Diggs that we're not going to get into, but that's a development there. But the Patriots with their running game, I've kind of been impressed with what Ramondre Stevenson's been able to do, especially as a pass catcher. They've been using him as a receiver more. And he's been making his mark, and you still got Travion Henderson. His explosiveness has had some big explosive runs this season. Hunter Henry is a key component of that team. So, and on top of that, yeah, Stroud didn't look good, and he's going up against the Patriots defense, which is a solid unit. They can get after you.
I was about to say that. Yeah, like again, if the Patriots defense plays how they played against the Chargers, Chargers might have been a little bit. I don't know. Chargers, again, wasn't the hardest task, obviously, because we all know where their offensive line ranks. But at the same time, Texas offensive line isn't as good.
Yeah.
Stroud isn't as good as a quarterback as Justin Herbert. Like, if we see the same type of thing and it's a low-scoring game, who do you want to make? Make a play? Drake May or Stroud? The gap is tremendous.
Yeah, and I think that, unlike what the Steelers weren't able to do last night, I think if the Patriots force turnovers, I think they're going to make you pay for it. They're going to be able to score points, so.
Question mark. Also, too, like how you were alluding to with Ramondre Stevenson and Travion Henderson, I really think both of them are pretty good running backs. My only issue with both of them, I feel like throughout the season, and again, I pretty much watch almost every Patriots game because I'm a huge Drake May fan. But at the same time, like I feel like with these running backs, I feel like they complement each other pretty well.
Yeah.
But I feel like they never both have great games at the same time. For me, it's kind of like usually like one or the other,
Hmm.
which I don't necessarily like. I want to see a game where both of them are really effective to a high level and they're able to use both and split both. It seems like more of like a hot hand thing to me. But yeah, the running backs are really good for them. And again, I think that's the biggest takeaway for me for the Patriots game. I'm not overly impressed with how the Patriots offense performed at all. Drake May did figure it out late in that game. And I do think for, again, even though they won very differently, for Chicago and for the Patriots, I think it's very important that, again, Drake May and Caleb Williams really had slow starts in the first half. There's no doubt about that. But I think, again, just to get over the hump of your first playoff game, come out with a win and survive in advance is more important than
Yeah.
anything. And I do think, again, like how well this Patriots unit has played, if it does get into a defensive battle, because I do think this Patriots defense can get the strap, it's going to come down to who can make a big play. And again, for the Texans, it did come down to Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk had a really great game. But a lot of these playoffs does come down to who steps up for you for a lot of these teams that aren't, perennial playoff Super Bowl teams. Like, again, you look at the Panthers game, Jalen Coker, phenomenal game. That's what they were able to stay in it. You look at the Bears game, Colston Loveland, arguably the best game of this whole entire playoff slate. Like, a lot of guys are going to have to step up that haven't stepped up all season if you want to go on one of these runs. So that's big as well. But like I said, I think the Patriots have the unit defensively to keep up with the Texans, again, to shut down the Texans possibly, to make it a low-scoring game if that's what it needs to be. But they also have the quarterback and the upside to blow by them as well when it comes down to making plays in big spots. Obviously, everybody trusts Drake May, no matter if you're a Texans fan or whatever, more than C.J. Stroud. That's the thing with me, too. And then, again, I think the Texans, even if they were to get past the Patriots, they were to go against the Broncos with, again, a very similar defensive unit and a quarterback that I would take over Stroud with a better offensive line, or if they go up against a monster in Josh Allen. I don't think anybody could stop Josh Allen nowadays.
Although
So
they
again,
did beat him up this year, though, with Davis Mills at quarterback. But they would be seeing him a second time.
they did. They did. That was definitely one of the more shocking games of this season. But I don't see that happening again. If Josh Allen were to play the Texans, I can't see him knocking out this game. But again, you never know. But that's my concern with the Texans. Even though the defense is no doubt elite, you could argue the best defense in the entire league. I would probably take them over any defense. I feel like the offense on the other side makes them a very lopsided team.
Yeah, I mean, especially with Stroud turning the ball over 3 times. I mean, I'm not going to, like, again, I don't know what was going on with the snap exchange between him and the center. I mean, that was just a mess. But I mean, if you turn the ball over 3 times against the Patriots, like they're gonna make you pay. So they got to make sure that that does not happen. And we got to see what happens with Nico Collins because he got banged up in this game, and he's obviously their best receiver. Christian Kirk really stepped up. So not you got to have Nico Collins for this game.
100%.
And Woody Marks being able to run the football effectively, that's encouraging. Is he going to be able to do that against the Patriots? We'll see because the Steelers have been susceptible to the run basically all year. So with the Patriots, I think it'd be different.
I mean, it's going to be huge. That's going to be huge too. Like you got to be able to run the football because again, like we said, when we talk about Stroud and this offensive line, probably the last quarterback you would want of the remaining teams left, and then a below average offensive line. Like if they don't have the ability to run the football and Stroud
Yeah.
sitting back, and again, another guy that doesn't really extend plays very highly, that could be a tough outlook.
Yeah. So we did bring up Caleb Williams briefly, 2 games that we didn't get to yet. But with the Bears Packers game now, we'll talk about that here. I was already, Caleb Williams really made big strides this year. And obviously, for a lot of people that we're friends with, and everybody being Caleb Williams fans, including yourself, and even last year you could tell like the guy has the talent. Like if you get the right head coach in here, he's going to be able to exploit that, and Caleb Williams is going to have a big year. And it turned out to be Ben Johnson, and Caleb Williams had a big year. The Bears had a big year, and they made the playoffs. And I feel like on Saturday, I think Caleb Williams really put a stamp on it that he belongs and that he is on his way to being one of the top quarterbacks in the NFL. I mean, it's amazing how every Bears Packers game this year basically started off and almost ended the same way, with the Packers jumping out to a lead, and then it takes the Bears basically the whole game to wake up, and then they come back. The first game they fell a little bit short. Caleb threw that interception in the end zone. Keyshawn Nixon picked them off, but the second game in Chicago, they get that onside kick, they tie the game, they win it in overtime. He makes that great throw to DJ Moore, and then he has the best throw of his career, his early career, and one of the best throws you'll see, that 4th and 8 where he just chucks it up and Rome Odunze is able to come down with it. I mean, he was making some incredible plays, and the Bears are here, and they've gotten over that hump. I mean, the Packers for years have owned this rivalry, but it kind of looks like the tide has turned, because even going back to last year, like, they won the final game of the regular season in Lambeau on a game-winning kick, and they would have won the first meeting between the two in Chicago last year if it wasn't for a blocked field goal. So you're looking at potentially Caleb Williams being winless or undefeated, I should say, against the Packers, which is unbelievable. And I mean, for the Packers, just another playoff collapse. I mean, you could make the argument this was worse than the championship game collapse against Seattle all those years ago. I mean, it was just that bad. I mean, they're up 21-3 going into the half, and once we get late into that game, they couldn't get a stop, and the offense kind of just disappeared. I thought Josh Jacobs would have had more of an impact on the game. He was good in the first half, but he was kind of non-existent. The offense stalled. I not that I thought the game was over completely, but I thought when Matthew Golden had that unbelievable touchdown catch and run, I thought the Packers were in good shape. I mean, we were waiting all year for him to finally score a touchdown, and he did in a big way.
Pretty good.
It was a very good play. Avoided a couple tackles. I thought the Packers were in good shape, but it didn't happen, and they left points on the board. And it's kind of similar to what happened against the 49ers a couple of years ago, where you had your kicker not come through for you. Special teams has been a problem for the Packers in the playoffs for years, and you left 7 points off the board in this game. And had you would have made at least one of your kicks, you could have forced the game to overtime. You could have gone down the field to win the game, and instead they're going home. And I thought Jordan Love played a great game. 4 touchdown passes, over 300 yards. He was great, but injuries kind of caught up to the Packers. The offense, like I said, stalled. And this Bears team, you can never count them out, because it just seems like several of these games this year where the offense just is doing nothing, is giving you nothing, and then they wake up, and Caleb Williams just looks like the best quarterback in the league. Putting together great drives, and now they're on their way to the divisional round to take on the Rams. And I was very impressed. But the other thing too that's getting a lot of traction is just Ben Johnson after the game, especially in the locker room, after the Packers and all that, and everybody's just like, oh, that's so classless. I would go as far as to say, like, the handshake with Matt LaFleur was a little classless, but at the same time, I do agree with the fact that, like, even as a whole, society is just getting so soft. Like, it's football. Like, that's what it is. It's a rivalry. It's one of the greatest rivalries in all of sports. It's like, that's how it is. It's football. Like, it's just, I just don't understand that.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm not a huge fan of it, but then at the same time, like, you win this game, you have the bragging rights to say whatever you want. I'm not really for it or against it necessarily, but I wanted to talk about Caleb Williams in this game more than anything. I think, again, whether you look at people want to lean to, was it more about the Packers collapse or is it more about Caleb Williams' comeback? It's 100% more about Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams, to me, has more upside than any young quarterback in this league. Caleb Williams has stuff that's elite stuff wired in him that you can't teach somebody, you can't coach somebody to have. Caleb Williams, when he throws 2 interceptions, when he has multiple turnovers in a game, this guy has as short of a memory as anybody. It does not affect him. And I always talk about on my college football podcast, that's the biggest thing that I look at in a quarterback. When everything's great, everything's great. When you throw 2 interceptions, you turn the ball over multiple times, are you able to come back from that? Are you able to have a short memory, or does that linger the entire game and make a bad situation even worse? This guy, Caleb Williams, you cannot count him out of any game, let alone have any game in the balance. When you look at Green Bay, you could have said, hey, maybe they could have ran the ball more with Josh Jacobs, take off a little more time. Josh Jacobs is a good back. I saw something in the second half. He had like maybe, I don't know, 6 carries for 8 yards, something like that. Could have been that. For me personally, it comes down to one thing. It comes down to your kicker. Your kicker left 7 points on the board. 90% of the time, when your kicker leaves that many points on the board, you're not going to win the game. He makes his kicks, you win this game. It's a different outcome. I don't really go much more off the coaching standpoint. I think Caleb Williams made some incredible throws. And when you look at Caleb Williams, how he's wired, again, this is just the beginning of it. I don't want to go too far, but this is stuff flashes you see out of Michael Jordan, you see out of Tom Brady. You see no moment is too big for him. And at this young of an age, in his second year, when you talk about what he did in the regular season, the comebacks he had, that was one thing, and some of the greatest comebacks we've ever seen. But then when you look at on a different stage in the playoffs, and we talk about how many young quarterbacks can transform their game into the playoffs, and Caleb Williams comes out with one of the best comebacks we've ever seen in his first playoff game, this guy's wired differently. And when you look at, again, him missing throws, him missing easy throws, that's all going to come for him. Because when you have that 4th and 8, like you said, him making that jump man throw over 3 Packers defenders, 2 Rome Odunze in that moment, the amount of difficult throws he's able to make, it's going to be so easy for him throughout his career to improve on those easy throws with the amount of difficult throws and how he's able to make any throw on the field. But like I said, we could talk about all these young quarterbacks, and again, quarterbacks that I even love more than Caleb Williams. When you talk about a Justin Herbert or a Trevor Lawrence or any of these guys that have the ability to do anything on a football field, Caleb Williams already getting out of his way, his ability to play in the big moments that so many other young quarterbacks, that's such a huge question for. That's why this guy has the biggest upside out of anybody. Because what he's able to improve on is so easy for a guy like him to improve on. And the amount of stones he has, you cannot teach that. You can't. This comeback is all about Caleb Williams. And I don't even fault the Packers as a coaching staff. This was an incredible player making incredible plays that is so rare. And again, for Packers, what I really lean on is that kicker. McManus, he left 7 points on the board. He talked about, again, how it's his most embarrassing performance. But that's really what I leave it to. If you have the kicker who's able to make his kicks, again, very makeable kicks, you come out winning that game. But when you're talking about an incredible player in Caleb Williams putting up an all-time performance in the fourth quarter, he threw for 184 yards in the fourth quarter. Like, again, that's an all-time performance. That's a guy on the other sideline that, in my opinion, you just got to tip your cap. What you could look at is the kicker, but that's about it to me.
Yeah, and what did they score? What was it? 25 points in the fourth quarter? I mean, it was just like what the Broncos did to the Giants earlier. Yeah, 25 points in the fourth quarter. They outscored the Packers 28-6 in the second half. And the Packers missed a field goal right before the end of the first half. And also, they were fortunate because there were a couple times where, they fumbled the football, but they were able to jump back on it. So the Bears could have cashed in on that earlier because there was that one play where they had like the tackle eligible or an offensive lineman, whoever it was, a tackle guard, and he caught it and then he fumbled and the Bears almost jumped on it, but it went out of bounds. And you were like, okay, maybe you shouldn't have done that in a playoff game. But yeah, it's just for the Packers. I mean, for the last few years now, their ceiling has been the 7 seed. And a couple years ago, they were the first 7 seed to knock off a 2 seed. But last year they played the Eagles, who eventually were the defending champs, and then this year, I mean, looked like they were going to win this game. They should have won this game, and they choked that away. And you got people calling for Matt LaFleur's job. I mean, with a collapse like that, I mean, yeah, it does make him look bad. But yeah, I mean, like you said, it's not all on him. Caleb Williams made some incredible plays. Brandon McManus, you got to make those kicks, and the offense kind of stalled a little bit, in the middle part of the second half. So, it's tough. It's really tough, and they also weren't coming in fully healthy or missing some guys, Micah Parsons and Tucker Kraft. They were definitely missed in this game. So I mean, if the Packers are a healthy squad next year, maybe things are different. It was at least encouraging to see that Jordan Love went out and played a really good game.
Yeah,
But
he played great.
yeah, no, the Packers are going home, and the Bears will be taking on the Rams. That's the last game a divisional weekend, which I think could be a very good game. Even though the
Yeah, I think
weather's going to be a factor in the game. It's going to be a very
I was
cold one.
I was gonna say too, like not only that game at Chicago, like I understand on paper that the Rams lay over the Bears, but playing somebody wired like Caleb Williams, you can't count him out.
No, you can, and like I said to start off this show is like the Rams did win the game against the Panthers on Saturday, but I'm not encouraged by what I've seen from them recently. I mean, their defense is not as locked down as I thought it was. Like I said, Stafford's been a little shaky with the turnovers. Um, Puka Nacua is a monster. You're gonna have to stop him. Devontae Adams is just getting his feet wet, coming back from injury. He's gonna be part of more of the game plan. They're gonna have to rely. Both teams, at times are really gonna have to rely on their running game. In this game coming up with how the weather is shaping out to be. But the final game we have to get to, though, unless you have any more thoughts on Packers Bears.
No, yeah, no. I pretty much like I said, I think the Rams should win that game. Roster wise, they lay over them, but like I said, if the ball's in Caleb Williams' hands, you can't count him out. But
Yeah,
I'm down to getting the Bills Jaguars for sure.
yeah. So that's it. So this is the final game that we will get into. This was a very good game as well. And I thought Duval really brought it. It's been quite some time since they hosted a playoff game. That crowd was really into it. I thought all the crowds, for the most part, were really into it this weekend with their respective teams. Because, the last time the Jaguars made it, well, last time they hosted a playoff game was when, the Saxonville days with Blake Bortles. So it's been quite some time since they hosted a playoff game. And, it was a very entertaining game. Josh Allen really got beat. Yeah, Josh Allen really got beat up in this game. Trevor Lawrence, I still thought some of his throws were not coming out clean, and did lead to a couple of the last interception was, I think it was more just a great play by the defense and was a deflection, but
they were desperate at that point.
But yeah, it was really just about, for the most part, who had the ball last, and Josh Allen. Well, Trevor Lawrence did get the ball last, but got picked off, but. There were some really good plays in this game. I mean, I thought Josh Allen, that play where he's, basically, got guys in his face and he just, lost one up to Brandon Cooks. That was a great play. I mean,
that was the play of the game, probably.
Yeah. And the tush push, later, I think it was on that drive on the fourth down where he almost, scored.
Yeah, that was just unserious.
And it was just funny how I kept saying, I'm like, I mean, I know it's a guarantee, but last year against the Chiefs, he didn't pick up the first down, and you kept saying, well, they're not playing the Chiefs. And yeah, I mean, it's just every time there was 4th and inches, like they picked it up, which as they should because they got Josh Allen. But he got beat up in this game. I mean, he got his knee twisted. He hit his hand on somebody's helmet. They were evaluating him for a concussion, and he was dealing with the foot injury prior to the game. He dealt with a bunch of injuries, bumps and bruises, and now he's got to play on Saturday, a short week, against another great defense in the Broncos. So not going to get any easy there on that front. But he was the bottom line is this: he was the difference maker in this game. The Bills defense I thought made key plays when they had to, but the Bills are not winning this game without Josh Allen going Superman mode, and that's exactly what happened in this game. And especially with the running game being non-existent. I mean, James Cook had no room to run in this game. I thought the Jags did a great job containing him. Josh Allen got his pass catchers involved. Brandon Cooks had some catches, like I said, the one towards the end. Khalil Shakir was involved in this game. It was really all about Josh Allen. And kudos to Jacksonville. The game was there for them, there for the taking. Guys showed up on their side. Again, Trevor Lawrence I thought played a decent game, although again some throws didn't come out great. But Parker Washington put a stamp on this game. We saw Brian Thomas Jr. get in the end zone. Jags got a bright future. They got a bright future. I was definitely surprised by them. When we did our predictions, you had them winning the division. I had the Texans winning the division. But I was definitely surprised by really the team as a whole, because I didn't know what to expect from this defense. I didn't think the defense was going to be very good, but the defense, turned out to be very good this season. And Trevor Lawrence for the final month of the season, he was playing like one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Was finally playing up to his potential. And the Jags, they got a lot of weapons on this team. Would like to have seen Brian Thomas Jr. get involved more. I mean, I just feel like he has a very very diminished role on this team now. But Travis Hunter goes down, and like I said, Parker Washington had a very good game. He stepped up. The Jacoby Myers trade ended up working out. Brenton Strange, has been a good tight end for them, and the running game was good for them this year. Travis Etienne really bounced back in a big way. So the Jags are heading in the right direction. They had a great season. It's just you ran into a team. You ran into a quarterback. They're a good team in January. It's just they run into a team that's no longer in January this year, and that's the Chiefs. So Josh Allen's on a mission, to finally get over the hump and get to that Super Bowl. And that's just what it came down to. It's just Josh Allen. That he was the difference maker in this game. And now he goes to Denver. It's a very tough place to play, especially in the postseason. They've been waiting for it. Rematch of the wild card game from last year. So we'll see what happens there. It's the first game of the weekend, a divisional round weekend. So Josh Allen was great once again. And the Jags, congrats on a great season, but they came up a little bit short.
Yeah, my opinion on everything. By no means do I think the Bills all around are one of the best teams in this playoffs. I don't. When you have a player like Josh Allen, who's Superman, who probably lays over any quarterback in this tournament, I think you have a chance at any game, obviously. I thought for the first 3 quarters of this game, I mean, Josh Allen was banged up. I don't think either quarterback looked great. Then when we look at the fourth quarter, both quarterbacks turned it on. We see 4 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. Again, we were talking about the over-under in this game, how it wasn't even going to come close. It came very close.
It was right on. It was 51.
Yeah, both quarterbacks really turned it up in the fourth quarter. Again, I didn't think Trevor Lawrence played bad in this game by any means, but I do think he left a lot on the table in the first 3 quarters with some throws. And I do think, again, when you're playing a Josh Allen who is the best quarterback in the league, I do think that's something that cannot happen. Again, you can look at a lot of this game for Jacksonville. If certain things went different, obviously we look at before the half ends, Little, he misses that kick. Maybe we have a tie game that goes into overtime. Maybe if the scoreboard tilts a little bit, maybe the Jaguars win this game. Who knows? Again, hypotheticals, what I love to go into. Again, nobody knows what happened. He missed the kick. But again, yeah, I thought you had a great duel between 2 really good quarterbacks in the fourth quarter. Obviously, Josh Allen is the top of the league. Trevor Lawrence has been turning it on as well. But again, I said to you, I don't know if you remember when we were watching this game, I think it was about 8 minutes left. Jacksonville had the ball to take the lead. I said to you, I don't think this is a good scenario for Jacksonville because no matter what they do here, they're going to leave enough time for Josh Allen to go down and score. That's exactly what happened. And again, the better quarterback had the ball at the end of the game. He won. It went his way. Again, this is a game that could have went multiple different ways. At the same time, for the Bills, it's great for their fan base as well, even though I don't want to talk about teams that aren't in the playoffs. How many times did the ball end up in the Chiefs' hands late in the game and not in their quarterback's hands? Now you get the reverse. Josh Allen gets the last say in this game pretty much. Again, like you said, Trevor Lawrence did get the ball technically at the end. But again, they were desperate at that point.
Yeah, it was very quick. Pick was very quick.
I think, again, like you said, Brandon Cooks, that play, Josh Allen to Brandon Cooks, where, again, Lloyd had a free shot at his face. Josh Allen stood in there, ate the hit, made a spectacular throw. That was definitely the play of this game. At the same time, too, whether it's Brandon Cooks being a veteran, playing for every single team, every single quarterback, finding ways to get open, again, late in the season, or when you look at this defense, who I don't think is a spectacular unit by any means, but I also agree with what you said. This defense makes key plays at key times. I think that's also something to look out for if you're Buffalo. And again, when you look at if you compare 24 men to 24 men on every single team, again, other teams are going to have more players win out, but other teams don't have a Josh Allen. Josh Allen has the ability to make a run just based on him being the best player in this playoffs, in my opinion, by a wide margin. When you look at Jacksonville, again, it was a great season. I personally thought they were going to win the division. Again, that's also my Trevor Lawrence bias. He ended up being, again, you could argue the best quarterback through a stretch of weeks. And I also think this team has a lot of upside. The defense we were unsure about. This defense is probably a top 5 unit this year if you were to go over it. The way they were able to stop James Cook and every running back, I think that was a key part of them staying in this game. And also, again, I think a lot of people on this team, like you mentioned, do have a lot of upside. Brian Thomas Jr., who was one of the best receivers last year, not being that involved this year. Who knows next year, maybe he turns back to that form. Also, Travis Hunter, they were never able to figure out. He goes very early in the season. That's a guy with the number 2 overall pick that they selected that, again, who knows, sky could be the limit for him as well as a key contributor. If they hold all these pieces together, I think Jacksonville could be a very dangerous team again for the next 5 years. Again, you said with Etienne too, I think Etienne is one of the most underrated players in the league. A lot of people are like one side or the other on him. Either he's not a good running back or he's a really good running back. I think he's a really good running back. I think he's one of the running backs. Again, nobody compares to McCaffrey, but he's one of the running backs in the league, very few, that gives you pretty elite receiving upside. He could be used as a receiver. He's really good as a runner, in my opinion, too, when he gets to the outside. This Jacksonville team, again, like I said, next 5 years, they're going to be dangerous. But the Buffalo Bills with Josh Allen, I mean, he got the ball last. He made it happen. This guy's the best player in the league right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's just it's really impressive what we're watching with him. Yeah, I mean, for the Jags, it's just, it's unfortunate. You just kind of ran into the MVP, of last year, and one of the best quarterbacks, of this new era now. So, but that basically covers everything with the games. Any final comments before we wrap up here?
I really got not much. Again, like I said in the beginning of the episode, they didn't go great for us
Nope.
as fans. But again, we have a couple of players we can root for. Like I said, I like Drake May. I like Caleb Williams. I like Bo Nix. Obviously, you have a lot of players too in each game that you have to root for. So again, it should be fun. Thank you for having me on. I'm sure we'll continue to be watching games together. And who knows, maybe as we're breaking down games together, I'll hop on another episode for you.
Yeah, no, that's right, No, I appreciate you copping on as always. Where can everybody find you now on your platforms?
Everybody can find me on Sloppy Saturdays. Sloppy Saturdays everywhere. YouTube, any podcast platform, TikTok, everything. Just Sloppy Saturdays. If you guys are into college football or you want to see your host Kenneth on a couple of episodes, be sure to check me out.
Yep, and make sure to do that. So that's pretty much it, everybody. As always, make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the video, to the channel, wherever you get your podcasts. You can listen to us as well. You look up Infinite Sports, you find us there. Follow us in the social media platforms in the description below, TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. And until next time, everybody, I'm your host, Kenneth Gruenfelder, along with my good buddy Dom Matassa, signing off. Have a good one. Talk to you guys next time.